President Cyril Ramaphosa will tomorrow receive the final Special Investigating Unit report on alleged corruption related to COVID-19 tenders. The SIU head advocate Andy Mutibi confirmed this during an anti-corruption picket in Pretoria. The move comes as the country marks International Anti-Corruption Day.
This day is marked with enthusiasm because we have committed, we will give the President the report on the PPE investigations tomorrow. So this is happening on the eve of submitting that important report, and it's going to be making sure that we hold all of those who are responsible to account.
As the country commemorates International Anti-Corruption Day, Corruption Watch has released a report which unveils the findings of an online perception survey towards whistleblowing in South Africa. The study explores the public trust in institutions, awareness of whistleblowing reporting channels. And joining me to talk further on this is Corruption Watch campaign coordinator Mzwandile Banjathwa, as well as Ahmed, Kathrada Foundation Executive Director Neeshan Balton. Gentlemen, good evening. Thank you very much for your time joining us tonight here on In Focus. Mzwandile, let's start with you. If you can unmute for us, if you can, please. The existing perception around whistleblowing in the country, are people aware of the reporting channels, and what is their perception of the robustness of our system in reporting crimes of corruption anonymously and feeling protected?
Yeah, I think that is exactly what it led us to undertake this study, because we wanted to understand exactly that. And the findings were quite interesting because firstly we find that the majority of our respondents were actually aware of what is actually whistleblowing and how they understood it to be. And they understood it quite clearly to be disclosing information to the public, to the media, to persons of authority, to investigative authorities. And these would be information, of course, around misconduct and abuse of power in all segments of society, really. And they've also been able to highlight the positive aspects of reporting and whistleblowing. And firstly, they've clearly stated that this brings justice to a situation where there was wrongdoing or where there was a person who was wrongly done. And this also curbs corruption and crime in our country. About 58% of the people who participated in the study actually noted that if they had to experience corruption, they would report this corruption to various entities. But what we find to be quite interesting is that people know where they should report these incidences of corruption. They've highlighted that 71% said that yes, you can report these incidences to the SAPS. Others said 63% said they could report these incidences to Corruption Watch. Others said they could report them to Chapter 9 institution. But the vast majority of them actually said they would rather report these incidences to civil society organizations and also Chapter 9 institutions and also to the media. And now what we are finding here is that majority of would-be whistleblowers do not necessarily trust some of the government institutions like the SAPS and others as well, which is a quite disturbing finding. But what they also have highlighted, which is quite important, is that firstly, in the effort to improve whistleblowing in our country, they believe that the government should establish a whistleblower institution or agency, of course, that would provide legal, financial, and also mental health support to whistleblowers. But there should also be a dedicated additional resources to law enforcement agencies so that they could also ensure that whistleblower complaints are investigated thoroughly and timelessly, and perpetrators are brought to account.
Now, Neeshan, you of course were involved in one of the events today, and you delivered an address particularly around the impact of corruption in people's ability to trust the institutions, one, but also to be involved in the democratic processes. Draw that parallel for us. I mean, people are aware, for example, of what whistleblowing is and why this is important in the fight against corruption. But there's a sense that they would rather take that to organizations like yourself or bring them to organizations like ourselves, but not go to the institutions.
Well, the point I was making at the UN Public Services Commission conference today was that corruption just erodes trust in political institutions, and fundamentally weakens democracy to the point that people will withdraw from elections and slowly will withdraw from all participatory mechanisms in society. And that would include whistleblowing platforms created particularly by the state and other reporting mechanisms. So in a sense, people would see the state as being totally corrupt and therefore not distinguish between the sites of corruption and those who have other kinds of regulatory functions. But in the eyes of ordinary lay people, government is government, and therefore everybody in government, public representatives, public servants, in their view, would all be corrupt. And that when that becomes the dominant view, you will find it very difficult for people to trust the institutions that they now think are the perpetrators of corruption. And that's really the essence of what I was trying to get across today. Yeah. That this withdrawal from the democratic structures and participatory structures then leads to people finding other platforms. And so far, people are going to civil society structures. But if they don't find joy there, then they might as well begin to think that it is a worthless exercise, and it would be better if they were to then join the ranks of those who are actually committing corruption. And that's a point that I think we need to prevent society from getting to.
Yeah. Not only that, you're saying this inability to locate sites of corruption leads to actually people fighting amongst themselves. For example, taking that anger for a lack of resources that have been siphoned off because of corruption to saying, well, it's foreign nationals in the country, for example.
No, we see that. You know, if you look at the effects of corruption on delivery in poor communities, every small project becomes a site of contestation. Every element that promises some degree of benefit and delivery becomes a contestation about who must deliver it, who must benefit from it. And then where things have evolved to is to then begin to localize beneficiaries to a point where beneficiaries must come only from a particular community or nationality. And at this point, we are seeing a kind of division between South Africans and foreign, so-called foreign nationals in this country. Sooner or later, I think you're going to see it across very narrow geographical, racial, religious, and other tribal lines. That I think is what we really would need to be avoiding, is this narrow othering around the very basic crumbs that I think communities are now struggling for.
Yeah. Mzwandile, on Dare to Act, I mean, what are your findings around the whistleblower, or at least the community's awareness around laws that protect them around whistleblowing? They might be aware of the channels, but are they aware of the laws that protect whistleblowers in South Africa?
Unfortunately, we find that there's a lesser number of people who are aware of pieces of legislations that they could then rely on for this protection. That is why, as part of our key recommendations stemming from the outcomes of this survey, we are proposing that firstly the Protected Disclosures Act needs to be reviewed further and amended. In particular, the definition of a whistleblower, because it still focuses on a person who is an employee of a certain entity or a worker of a particular entity. Now, it's very important for it to be expanded so that anyone who has information about wrongdoing and misconduct could be able to then bring that information forward and be protected. Because at Corruption Watch, we receive reported incidences of corruption from virtually everyone. These would be ordinary members of the public, and this, of course, could also be volunteers in various entities, and this could be service providers to those particular entities as well. All of those people need to feel that they could report these incidences of corruption. But it's very important for us also to implement and establish that agency, which has been cited by the people who participated in this survey, because this is also in line with the proposals that are contained in the National Anti-Corruption Strategy. Because that agency will then provide whistleblower support that is quite necessary to them, because it will provide them with legal support, with financial support, and mental health support as well. Because that is what they need at this particular instance. But of course, as we are leading towards the establishment of that particular agency, what we are suggesting is that in the meantime, the government could allocate money from the Criminal Assets Recovery Account Fund towards financing the support of whistleblowers who are seeking legal security and mental health support. But mainly, we should also start having this serious conversation around the compensation of whistleblowers, because they put their lives at risk and suffer a huge amount of detriment as a result, and they lose their livelihood as a result. So we must really look at this, and we must also think about how we then compensate whistleblowers. But another step in the right direction could be the speedy resolution of some of these matters and some of these cases, so that those who are found to be accountable for some of the alleged corruption could then face the might of the law as soon as possible.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there because of time. I do appreciate you all, and thank you very much for joining us, Neeshan, as well as Mzwandile Banjathwa there.